Good morning, all. Thanks for virtually being with us today. So just wanted to quick call out, we are actually having some technical difficulties with GoToMeeting this morning, and unfortunately, it is not allowing us to share our webcams with you all. But just so you know, Sasha ironed his shirt and I put makeup on, so we really tried. But yeah, we're just gonna make do with this. It looks like the presentation's still sharing, so we've got a lot of good information for you. It's hard to believe that somehow it's already December and 2021 is knocking on our doors. I'm Molly Shane and I am a sales executive at Sojourn. And today I will be serving as your moderator as we uncover more of the building blocks that make up an effective marketing plan, specifically in the hospitality space. So for those of you that are new to us, we are taking things back to the basics in this Digital 101 webinar series, where each month, some of our product experts are tackling a different marketing channel and breaking it down for me and all of you. And in our first presentation of the series, we briefly touched on each marketing channel and how they uniquely combine to reach your ideal travelers throughout the sales funnel. Then last month, we took a deep dive into programmatic display advertising. So if you're curious about those two topics, you can find those recordings on sojourn.com. So go check them out. This week, we continue adding tools to our tool belt by developing a basic understanding of search engine marketing, how we interact with it online, associated fees, and ultimately, how to track its success. So before I kick up my feet and hand the challenging parts over to today's fantastic presenters, I'll give you a quick intro to Sojourn. So Sojourn is a travel data company that specializes in highly targeted online advertising campaigns for hotel, attraction, destination, and tourism industries. So our access to real-time travel data allows us to find new guests heading to your market, introduce them to your brand, and ultimately introduce them to your business via our multi-channel ad campaigns. So now on to our experts. So these gentlemen receive far too many questions from me on a weekly basis, and somehow they always seem to have an answer. So I know you're in great hands today. We'll first hear from Sasha Lean, who is the principal product manager here at Sojourn. And then following Sasha, we'll hear from Nick Schrage, who serves as a search engine marketing analyst. Nick, do you mind introducing yourself to our listeners?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name's Nick, and yeah, I'm a search engine marketing analyst here at Sojourn. I've been in sort of the SEM world professionally for about 7 years now. Been at Sojourn for about a year and a half, and really sort of at a high level, my role here is just to sort of oversee the overall campaign optimization and management of all of the SEM campaigns we have running, doing a lot of testing, doing analysis on performance, looking for pockets of opportunity, keeping an eye out on new features to implement and things like that. Really just doing my best to make sure that SEM is a successful product, both for Sojourn and the customers that we're working with.
Awesome. Thanks, Nick. We are excited to hear from you. And before we jump into your presentation, why don't you also introduce yourself for us, Sasha?
Sure, my name is Sasha Lien. I'm a principal product manager here at Sojourn. I'm responsible for SEM and for metasearch. So my background is I've spent many years. I won't tell you the actual number because it will shock you, but I've been in this business for a very long time. And I actually also come from a hotel family. So my father, my sister, and my brother are all in the hotel business. So I literally grew up in the hotel business, and recently joined Sojourn about a couple of years ago, where I have been responsible for, like I said, SEM and metasearch since I've come here.
Thanks, Sasha. And one more thing before we get started, a quick reminder that we are hosting a live Q&A session with Sasha and Nick following the presentations. So be sure to submit your questions throughout the webinar for us by using the webinar control panel. And with that said, all right, Sasha, over to you.
Fantastic. So essentially what we're going to do is really kind of start on providing a good overview for everyone of what search engine marketing is. So if you can go to the next slide. Essentially, I think the background on this is that internet users are growing by an average of 1 million users per day. So this is actually a stat that I pulled, which is probably about a year old, and this is probably only accelerating because of COVID-19, right? So there's just probably a lot activities that were a mix of online and offline that is probably just really accelerating because of COVID-19. And the result of that is that we are spending a significant amount of time online, 6 hours and 42 minutes. Within that context, search is considered the most valuable source of that traffic. So everyone relies on it, and we are essentially focused on targeting users by keywords and really their intent to learn about your property and book a room. So Sojourn has certified partnerships with both Google and with Bing, so we have actually been partners for theirs for several years. So definitely our focus is on travel, but we have been doing SEM for a very long time. So this is also reflected in essentially on the other side of the coin. We interviewed our advertisers and asked them where were they spending their budgets online, where were they spending their marketing budgets in the last couple of years. And overwhelmingly, the two sources are social and paid search. So the combination of those two makes up a significant portion of the budget that is being spent online. So 17% of that is being spent on paid search. And really the reason why it's so important is that if you kind of look at where your search engine results appear, paid search engine results, SEM, and organic search results, which is really the core of why you engage in SEO, appears on the same place, right? So it is very powerful because it is a blend of both organic and paid content on the same results. So one is paid and represented by the ad icon, but the top search result, which is organic, will have different content on there, but essentially it really is always appearing side by side. So that is really what makes search very powerful for users and both for marketers, because it's very much in line with each other when it's being represented on the page. And so if we kind of delve into that, really the point of search engine optimization is really focused on optimizing your website to get traffic from organic search results. We'll probably get into that a little bit in our Q&A, but and the reason that you would do that is that you're trying to get your rank higher on search results page, which in the industry we kind of call those SERP pages. And that really sort of allows you to sort of figure out not just what's happening on your site, but also kind of what is happening with your search engine presence, all the way from acquiring customers to monitoring those users and analyzing organic or unpaid traffic patterns that are coming to your site. So if we kind of switch over to SEM marketing, it's a marketing business. We're using paid advertisements that appear on search results. And this is really kind of bidding on keywords that users are entering when they're searching for your business. And this is both on Google and Bing. So this can actually be known as paid search or pay-per-click ads, because it's also important to know that search engine marketing, there's actually offshoots of that, right? You can actually see this across the industry. Even if you were to actually go to Amazon, you can actually see that with other verticals. It's like they do actually have a lot of pay-per-click ads within that environment as well. So in general, while this is focused on travel, the variations to kind of this performance marketing is all over the place, but we're here specifically to talk about search engine marketing as it relates to travel, mainly on Google and on Bing. And the reason it's so important for a hotel to have a presence on search engine results is because competitors and OTAs are competing against you all the time. So you can't really just rely on strong SEO to compete in search, because if you look at any search result, specifically for your hotel or property, you will see that hotels.com and booking.com are very well represented in a lot of the search results that you initiate. So it definitely is something that's very important just from a organic, but also from a paid SEM campaign process of just being able to compete against those, so that you are getting your fair share of direct conversions in line with what's going on that search results page as well. And this is very much reflected on how travelers are always searching. So if we were kind of take a look at the user's path to purchase, I mean, this can start a full 5 months before a trip, and you can bounce across verticals and websites in order to try and sort of begin that process. So as a user is moving from dreaming to searching, it takes her nearly a full month to narrow down travel dates. But then if you're sort of hesitating and pulling the trigger, that summer vacation, like that can change to dates for a Christmas trip, which is really kind of the next window where all kids are out of school. But once you're settling on a date and location, the booking process can happen in very quick succession. So basically what you're looking at here is kind of a very typical process of how a user would engage with your product. So it can be a combination of desktop and mobile. So I think this is very much reflective of like kind of my day where, you are in the hours between around 12 and like 1:30, you're open to like looking at hotels in Boise, Idaho. But in this day and age, also kind of looking at what the hotel cleaning policies are for some of these hotels, some of the safe outdoor activities that are there. But then when you're back in the office and kind of focused and you're taking a little bit of a break, you're then maybe sort of searching for outdoor activities in Idaho, whitewater rafting, guided tours of Idaho. And this is really sort of solidifying basically your choice to actually go to Boise. And then what you're really coming back to is not necessarily looking for hotel options that are wide ranging, but then really looking at specific hotels that you want to convert. So that sort of happens, can happen on mobile when you're sort of a little bit distracted, but oftentimes that can translate to a user coming back onto desktop and actually making the hotel booking for that hotel in Boise. So this is a very sort of typical structure that we try to take advantage of, or anyone should try to take advantage of with their SEM campaigns. And this is reflected in how we sort of see our users. There is a discover, a plan, and a booking phase, which is really focused on doing specific things for users as they're trying to come up with their next destination. And SEM actually kind of plays a role in all three of those. So for Discover, you definitely want to, and we'll get more into this about what non-branded keywords mean, really be able to market your hotel as an option, as we saw in that previous example, when people are looking at hotels in a wide area or have not really made up their mind. It's very important to have that presence because as people are discovering what they want to do on their trip and where to stay, that you have that presence. But then as you start going down from discovering to planning, that's really where we have a combination of branded and non-branded keywords, which is essentially promoting your property, the name of your hotel, which is branded, and non-branded keywords, which is kind of like hotels in Boise, Idaho. You really want to be able to have that presence because this is where they're starting to consider their choices of hotels. So a combination of both is really important from that aspect. And then booking, which is really where SEM shines and where branded keywords play that role. When a user is ready to book, they're going to use search very often to make sure that they're coming back to your hotel, looking at pricing choices, making that decision to convert, coming to your site, and reading everything that they need to know in order to make an informed decision and feel very confident about making that conversion process. So now we're going to go to how does it look, and at this point I'm going to hand over the reins to Nick, who's going to go into those details.
All right, great. Thank you, Sasha. So yeah, we're going to take a deeper look into SEM now, sort of under the hood, if you will, about how it looks, how SEM works, and sort of what needs to go into managing and running an SEM campaign. So starting off, again, just sort of going through a quick journey of what takes place when a user interacts with an SEM ad. It all starts, they go to Google or Bing or whatever search engine it is that they're using. They search for whatever it is that they're interested in. They see that results page. More than likely, a paid ad will be the first result there. Hypothetically, that ad sort of entices them to click it. They click the ad, they're taken to the website, and hopefully they sort of browse your site, they like what they see, and they end up converting. So that's sort of a quick rundown of the journey. So what sort of goes into making that actually happen? So starting off, we'll take a look at the search ad itself. So we have an example here, and you can see the ad we have highlighted. We have it broken out into a couple of different segments. So the main ad itself is really broken out into three main segments: the headline, the display URL, and the description. And then we have another concept called ad extensions below. Here we're calling out site links, which we'll touch on as well. So starting off with the actual main ad itself, the headline, probably the most important part of your ad, the most prominent thing on the ad. You can see it, the first line of text there in blue. For those, we get 3 headline segments that we can write ad copy for, each 30 characters in length maximum. In this particular ad, we're showing two headlines. So we have the sort of the name of the hotel is headline 1, and then headline 2, we have official, book, direct, and save. Directly below that, we have the display URL that shows up. That's essentially just the website that you're actually going to land the user to when they click the ad. You can't really adjust that any, but you can append 2 additional paths to the end of that URL, and we get 15 characters for each of those 2 paths. So here we have official site, book, direct appended to the end of the display URL. And then finally, the description text. So this is sort of where we have the most room to work with in terms of writing ad copy. For the description, we get 2 sort of description segments, each 90 characters maximum in length. So hypothetically, you could have a description text ad in 180 characters where you can write your ad copy. And those are really the 3 main aspects of creating an actual SEM text ad. And then below that, we have, again, the concept of ad extensions. And these are sort of additional little features or snippets that Google will sometimes append to the bottom of your ad for, additional callouts and things like that. The most important one is probably site links, which we're showing here on this screenshot. And what site links are, they're essentially mini ads, if you will, to your main ad that can get appended to the bottom of your main ad. And their purpose really is to call out additional pages of your website if you wish to do so. So maybe you have a sales page or a special promotions page, an amenities page, a contact us page, things like that that you'd want to create site links for. Just giving the user more options to click on your ad. So maybe your main ad takes you to the home page. However, you also have your site links so they can click deeper into your website as well if they want to do so. So that is sort of a quick rundown of the ad itself. That leads us sort of into the next concept of keywords. So how do we actually tell Google what types of search terms we want to show ads for? And that's where keywords come into play. So keywords can sort of be synonymous with search term. You can sort of use keyword and search term interchangeably. However, strictly definitionally speaking, there's a little bit of a difference. Simply put, keywords are what we use to tell Google what types of search terms we want to show our ad for. So at Sojourn, we sort of group these into 2 main categories. We have our brand keywords and we have our non-brand keywords. And Sasha sort of touched on this earlier. So brand keywords are those that they're searching directly for you, whether it's your business, your company, your product, your service. They're going to Google and specifically searching for you. So if you're a Hotel Highline, they're going to Google and they're specifically searching Hotel Highline. Where on the other hand, we have non-brand keywords, which are sort of more of those generic research prospecting type search terms. So things like hotels in New York City, places to stay near Madison Square Garden, things like that. So if you look sort of at a timeline, a conversion funnel, you'll typically see people start out using those non-brand type keywords as they research, and then they'll sort of become familiar with the options that are available. So maybe pick out a handful of hotels that they're interested in researching further, and then they'll start moving into using those actual brand keywords to look for those specific hotels. So it's very important to sort of utilize both types of both brand and non-brand in an SEM strategy. You sort of want to be out there using those non-brand keywords just to sort of plant the seed, if you will, to the potential customer, saying, hey, you're looking for a hotel in New York City, come check us out, come consider us. And then as they get closer to converting, they start using those brand terms, and you want to be really aggressive with those brand keywords as well, just because more than likely, they're getting ready to pull the trigger and convert, and so you want to be there front and center when they're ready to do that, and they go to Google, they search for your hotel. You want to be available for them to click and land on your website to grab that conversion. So that sort of leads us into a next concept of keywords. We sort of talked about brand versus non-brand, and the next big concept is sort of this idea of match type. So not only do we have to tell Google what keywords we want to show ads for, but we also have to assign it a match type. So there are 3 different types of match type. There's exact match, phrase match, and broad match that we can assign a keyword. For this particular presentation, we're going to just focus sort of on the differences between exact and broad match. Phrase and broad are very similar to each other. They sort of serve the same purpose. So things I speak to about broad match can sort of carry over to phrase as well. So when I sort of talk about the different match types, the analogy I kind of like to use is using a spear for fishing versus using a big giant fishing net. So exact match, when bidding a keyword as exact match, it means exactly that. So if your keyword is Rimrock Resort Hotel and you bid that exact match, you're telling Google, I only want to show ads for this search term exactly without any sort of variation. So the search term has to be exactly Rimrock Resort Hotel. However, bidding that keyword as broad match sort of is a little bit more lenient, and you're telling Google, I don't necessarily care exactly what the search term is, as long as all of those words in that keyword appear somewhere within that search term. So that opens up quite a bit more search volume, where users can sort of interchange your keywords. So if the keyword is Rimrock Resort Hotel, maybe they searched Rimrock Hotel Resort instead, or maybe they added some additional words to their search term, things like stay at Rimrock Resort Hotel, or book a room at Rimrock Resort Hotel. So it definitely opens up to capturing a lot of that search traffic where people are using different variations of searching for your hotel. There's pros and cons to both match types. With exact match, you have that control. You know exactly what you're paying for. You know exactly what you're going to serve an ad for. However, you are limiting yourself in the volume of traffic you're going to get. Whereas broad match, you may not know exactly the type of search terms you're going to get, but you have a general sort of idea, and you're going to be capturing a lot of that still qualified traffic at a much higher volume. On the other side, something to consider with match type, using the example we have here of hotel in Phoenix. If we were to bid that as broad match, you might start serving ads for something like hotels in Phoenix with a pool. That might be great if your hotel has a pool, but if your hotel doesn't have a pool, that's probably not something that you would want to serve an ad for. So that again brings us into another concept called negative keywords, where we can add pool as a negative keyword, and that would essentially tell Google, yes, show all these search terms that contain hotels in Phoenix, but if one of those words is pool, then don't show an ad. So by utilizing negative keywords, we can sort of create a strategy that sort of gives you the best of both worlds with broad match, where you're, as time goes on, you're sort of studying the search terms that your keywords are bringing in, building out a robust negative keyword list to sort of block out any unwanted traffic from those broad match keywords. So we sort of covered, I think, sort of the two main aspects of an SEM campaign, being the ads and the keywords. We also have some best practices we want to cover. So again, continuing on with the keyword strategy, sort of utilizing both a mix of exact match and broad match, using those exact match keywords to sort of isolate those high performing keywords or search terms that you really want to focus on, and also using broad match to capture all that additional traffic from all those different variations of the ways people search, and also using broad match sort of as a farming ground to find new search terms that you could maybe convert into exact match and get tighter control of those. And then next, ad copy. So the biggest call out here is making sure that your ad copy that you're showing is in line with the keywords that you're serving it on. So using that hotels in Phoenix with a pool keyword example, you have that keyword. You could show an ad that says, we're a Phoenix hotel, but taking it sort of to the next level that says, in your ad copy, highlighting the fact that you do have a pool. Check out our amazing pool. Highlighting that in your ad copy is going to go a long way in terms of increasing your click-through rate. So making sure that all of the keywords, you're also sort of creating ad copy that highlights what those people are searching for to entice them to click your ad. And then the next step, something that we really haven't touched on yet, is the actual landing page that you're using for that keyword. So making sure that when they do click your ad, you're taking them to a good experience. Your website is a quality experience, easy to navigate. And not only that, but also that the content on your website is sort of in line with what they're searching for. So this might not be viable for every single keyword you're bidding on, but again, using that pool example, if you can get an experience where somebody searches hotels in Phoenix with a pool, you show an ad that says, hey, we're a hotel in Phoenix, we've got this amazing pool. They click on that ad, and then they land on a page that has an amazing picture of this amazing pool that you have at your hotel. That's going to be a great experience for that user and increase the likelihood of conversion. Now, again, that might not be viable for every single keyword. However, just highlighting the concept of using those keywords as sort of inspiration for creating content on your website as well. And then finally, keeping your bottom line in mind. So, money is obviously important. So, keeping an eye on budgets, setting responsible budgets, things that you're comfortable spending on a regular basis, as well as keeping an eye on the keywords that you're bidding on and the amount you're paying for those keywords. SEM can get very expensive very quickly if you're not careful. So keeping an eye on the type of search terms that you're bringing in and how much you're paying for those as well. So that sort of actually leads us into cost to implement. So, how much or how does SEM charge? How are you paying for this? And so I think the biggest call out here for this section is that SEM is CPC based, so you're paying only for clicks. If we go to the next slide. So yeah, you're only paying for the click of the ad. So hypothetically, you could show an SEM ad on a result page 100 times, and if nobody actually clicks it, you're not going to get charged anything. So you need to assign a what we call CPC, or cost per click bid, for each keyword, how much you're willing to pay for that click. And then how much you actually do end up paying is sort of a function of that versus, and also taking into account quality score. And what quality score is, it's essentially a ranking or a grade that Google will give you, essentially determining how good it thinks your ad is for that particular keyword. And this is based on three main metrics, looking at the ad relevance for that keyword. So again, talked about sort of the pool example, and then the landing page experience and the landing page relevance for that keyword, and then also the expected click-through rate. So historically, how often, and the likelihood that if somebody searches that keyword and your ad is shown, what the likelihood is that they're going to click your ad as opposed to maybe a competitor's ad or an organic result list item. So it sort of takes that quality score, mixes it in with what your bid is, and then that sort of is a function of how much you're actually going to pay for that click. So on the next slide, we sort of have a good example of how important quality score is and the impact it can have on a results page. So here we have two similar but different search terms. We have hotels in Healdsburg and then hotel Healdsburg. So hotels in Healdsburg would be sort of a non-brand type search term. They're just sort of generally looking for a hotel in Healdsburg, whereas hotel Healdsburg is actually a hotel, and we have the brand keyword for that. And you can see that we have two very different result lists. However, if you actually look at the CPC bid for both of these search terms, they're very similar. However, on the left, we do see hotel Healdsburg is first, and then we have the three competitors below it. However, on the right, we see hotel Healdsburg is again first. However, the ad is significantly bigger, and we're seeing those four big site links that are taking up almost half the page. And that's really a symptom of having a high quality score. So Google is saying they're recognizing that hotel Healdsburg as a keyword, and the actual website of hotel Healdsburg is highly targeted, highly relevant for that search term. So we're sort of getting a bonus for that particular keyword, and you can see that here on this example. So with that, I will transition it back to Sasha, and he can take it from there.
Right, and so to kind of take a step back from that, so we kind of went through this sort of very specific example to really kind of sort of looking at the difference between branding and consideration, right? So when we're looking at using non-brand keywords, which is really trying to build that branding and consideration of really increasing the number of users who would interact with your hotel, you are basically appearing in these search results because you as a user is showing interest in a destination and searching for hotels in Healdsburg, right? So you will have noticed that there's lots of competition from OTAs and also from nearby hotels because of that. And Google is changing the search results so that it is very much in line with user intent, right? So they know for a fact, based on the data that they have, is that it's hotels and not a specific hotel. So while your hotel property may appear in these organic search results, you want to try and make sure that you are also have a presence as far as your SEM campaigns. But you just have to make sure that you understand that it's very competitive for a reason, because the organic search results within that branding and consideration for that specific keyword is going to lean heavily on content that is showing hotel options. And that's the reason why hotels.com or some of the OTAs will have preference over that, because that is what users are trying to do. Their intent is they actually want to try and find a hotel within that destination. But if you're moving over to consideration and conversion, a user at that point has narrowed down the choices and they're searching for specific hotels like Hotel Healdsburg. So the SEM ad is ensuring that you have ownership of those brand keyword searches. You may appear in organic search results and your hotel may be listed first and you still may see competitors there. But that quality score and the fact that you have an SEM campaign for those brand keywords for your hotel is the reason, why that the reason you will be displayed higher in both organic as well as within your SEM campaign. So that leads to our next section, which is performance. And so essentially, this is kind of going to a little bit of kind of what Sojourn does. If we go to the next slide, we are focused on essentially delivering a few things with our solution. And this is definitely something that, for us, it's just basically best practice for SEM for Sojourn. So, we're here to provide a full funnel solution, which is grounded in driving direct bookings. So search ads should be inspiring travelers to visit your website and to book direct. Like that's definitely what our goal is. And we have trusted experts. And this is the form of analysts and data scientists, because analysts can really only take things so far, because what we really want to make sure that we're doing and what you're doing, if you're able to do that, is really taking a look at historical data to inform how you should be bidding, how you should be building your creative, like what type of experience you want to have from beginning to end. And that data is really what we rely on from our analysts, and really to be able to scale that so that that trusted expert information is being utilized by both internal analysts, but just using machine learning and automation to drive performance. The other part that we feel is very important is that SEM by itself is not always the best. It's one part of a multi-channel approach. So we actually do track conversions across channels to make sure that we're deduplicating efforts. So that's something to just bear in mind generally if you're using SEM and you're also participating in other channels. The fact that you're doing both, you really want to try and sort of figure out how you can create that sort of coordination to figure out how best to use SEM or with another channel like display or Facebook, and how they can be complementary. As we saw in our previous slides, the fact that Facebook is also an important channel, it totally makes sense. But that's because SEM and Facebook, they have slightly different objectives that you can actually insert within your campaigns to make sure that you're having a full multi-channel approach. And I think the net result is that what we're trying to do is we're trying to boost your ranking by competing against third parties who are bidding against your brand keywords. So that is very important. That type of ownership allows not just your organic search results, which can be there, to be further enhanced by making sure from an SEM perspective that your property is front of view when users are searching for your particular hotel. So we feel that that's very important. And to further that point, if we kind of take a look at example of including search and display as part of a campaign, these two things work better together. We have very strong evidence is when you're adding channels that you actually are able to increase your exposure to your customers and increase performance. And when clients are adding SEM, we have seen direct bookings increase by 2x or more on average. So it is very important as a channel, and also just to consider all sorts of other channels of like what is going to be the right mix for your property. And we feel that search is very important from that perspective. And this plays out. We have several case studies and several examples of clients where their objectives are really to make sure that they're maximizing this channel, so SEM, and to increase their bookings. And so we did this for Banyan Tree for one of their properties. They wanted us to increase their current search engine marketing efforts and to also be able to see an incremental change to their year-over-year bookings for a particular property, and of course, to be able to improve the ROI. So as a result of them having SEM, we saw 140 bookings driven by their SEM campaign, which resulted in $516,000 in direct booking revenue, and just with SEM saw an increase in their overall ROI for their marketing campaigns. So at this point, we're open to any questions, but I think we kind of, before we go into that, we just wanted to make sure that people also understood that, there's definitely more to come with Sojourn's Digital 101 series. And next up on January 20th, we will be presenting Facebook and Instagram. And you also are able to check out our previous seminars in this series as well. But at this point, we're open to questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That was fantastic. And thank you all for the great questions that you've been submitting throughout the presentation. So I know we also got some ahead of time, so we'll address some of those as well. I'm just going to do my best to kind of filter through all of these. So if you haven't quite gotten your questions submitted, fear not, you can still continue to send those my way in the webinar control panel. But jumping in, Sasha, I'm going to combine these two questions because I feel like your answer might complement one another. So first of all, how do I make my website appear more often on search engines? And then the follow-up to that is, where do you see SEO, so search engine optimizations, evolving in the next 5 years or so?
Right, and the reason why it's important to ask these questions is that SEO and your marketing plan and SEM, they all work together, right? So that quality score is because of your SEO efforts, right? So that's definitely something to remember. But I think I would boil this down to two things, which is really making sure that you are looking at this from a user intent versus a keyword perspective, and there is a subtle difference there. The other part of this is really from looking at this from a technical aspect, which is really having clean architecture and content presentation that aligns with how a user might search for your hotel and the service related to their stay. So if we look back at the user intent versus keywords, what search engines are looking for is they really want to make sure that they're providing their users with the right experience. And so they are very much focused on trying to determine what the user intention is when they're coming to a search page. Keywords are a part of that, but as you saw in our examples, when you're looking for hotels in Healdsburg, your intention is very different than if you're looking for a particular hotel name. So really focusing from an SEO perspective on the user experience, and that goes from the initial interaction that a user can have with your brand all the way through to post-visit. Like that type of user experience, I think, goes a long way for them to have a positive perception of your property. Customer service, all of that is part of it, right? Because the user intention that they have and the experience they have in your site, that should definitely be a part of that. So valuable content is what they're looking for in that score. And inherently, because you're the hotel, you have valuable content about your hotel, right? So being able to organize that and to make sure that you're presenting that in the right context, I think is very important. So, but then if we go to some of the basics of just having clean architecture and content, you really do have to make sure that you're taking a look at how users are using your site, right? So being able to spend some time, even if it is just kind of the basics of just really understanding, like, for instance, like how many users are coming to your site for your SEM campaign and what we call bounces, meaning that they come to the page, but they're not engaging with your content and then leaving. That I think actually is kind of a good indication that you have to take a look at the way your site is structured to make sure that once a user is landing to the site, that they have that positive experience. And if we're going into even more technical aspects of that, just making sure that the site works in mobile, and site speed can be very important. We know for a fact that that's very important for Google, that the site functions very well and quickly, because if the user is not getting the information they need very quickly, they're going to go back and search some other way or to another hotel. So that's definitely things to bear in mind.
Awesome. And then I think this is a really relevant question that was submitted. Sasha, this one probably goes to you as well. So how do we use search engine optimization to support and revive travel? We're in a tough spot right now. How can we use this as a tool to rebound?
So I think that one of the things that we want to just be careful about, it's not just SEO, right? So I think that if you kind of take a look at this in kind of everything you're doing from a marketing perspective, that's really where you want to have your focus, right? So what we know works, and we definitely have a lot of articles even on Sojourn that really goes around this, is really sort of thinking about how you can showcase your positive reviews, creating excitement around your reopening efforts or the offers that you have in place, right? So that's definitely something that you can think about now as you're opening up more, or if you're opening because of specific closures. That is definitely something, as Nick outlined, is like if you have sort of specific content that relates to that, you want to try and sort of think of how you can actually put some of that content or the lead into that content, into your SEM, but also make sure that all of that is represented on your site. So, getting out timely updates, making sure that you are providing information to people coming to your site around how you're protecting your staff and your guests. Is touchless check-in available? Are your restaurants open? Like, I actually went to a hotel and the restaurant was not open, but we went there knowing that that was going to happen. So I think that that's definitely something to consider, is that, from an SEO perspective, you're going to actually have to try to produce content that's going to be very specific to the situation that we're in. So I definitely have seen a lot of examples of hotels who are doing a really good job of just making sure that that's front and center, so that as you're considering booking a hotel, that you're able to click on information that's related to reviving the travel to your hotel, that people will want to see before they make a booking.
No, that's fantastic. And I love that you called out, it's not just SEO, it's a combination. You really do need to be putting emphasis into not only your organic efforts, but also your paid. So that's a good call out. Nick, I think this will be a good one to send your way. So have keywords changed due to the pandemic?
Yeah, so it's a good question. And when the whole COVID impact sort of started in early 2020, that was definitely something we were really focused on. And we did initially see some search terms pop up, around coronavirus, using terms like virus and COVID. However, surprisingly, to me at least, the impact was pretty minimal. And I think a large part of that is Google has actually been pretty restrictive on showing any sort of advertising around those types of searches. So I think at the beginning we saw a little of that pop up, but now there really hasn't been a whole lot of change. And again, looking at search terms and keywords, we're still really using the same search terms and keywords to drive traffic that we have post or pre-COVID.
Got it. And then, on the heels of that, what percentage of advertising investment should hoteliers or, attraction destination clients be investing into search engine marketing?
Yeah, I don't think there's a one size fits all answer for that. I mean, speaking generally at Sojourn, when we have customers sort of sign up for our multi-channel subscription product, we typically do see them sort of split the budget evenly between the products. So if they're running display, Facebook, and SEM, they'll sort of do a third, and a third. However, appropriate sort of budget allocation can vary from business to business based on a variety of factors, whether it's your individual goals or performance. I mean, if you end up seeing that SEM has really strong performance and another channel maybe isn't performing quite as well, or vice versa, it makes sense to maybe take some money out of one channel and put it into another to drive optimal performance there. And also search demand is another thing that really needs to be considered as well when looking at budget. Some businesses, they simply just don't get enough searches to sort of justify a high budget. I mean, you can have a really large SEM budget, but if people aren't searching for your individual property, a hotel in New York, hotels in New York is going to have obviously a lot more search term or search traffic than maybe a smaller town. So I mean, you can have as large of a budget as you want, but you can't really spend it because the demand isn't there. So taking into account search demand as well is also important, I think, when sort of deciding how much money you want to put into SEM.
Got it. Thank you. Here's another good one. So, Sasha, why should people care if an OTA or third-party site is outbidding them?
Well, OTAs are very important to anyone's distribution strategy. So it's definitely something where they're definitely doing very good work and making sure that they're bringing business to your hotel. But what I would say is it's difficult to build a relationship with your customers when the bookings are overwhelmingly driven by OTAs. So, but with direct conversions, you create the opportunity to own the relationship, increase your ability to engage with your customers, right? You're able to create a unique experience from booking through to post-stay, build loyalty, remarket more effectively. Like my understanding is that becomes difficult if all you're getting is conversions from OTAs. So the other thing to also realize too is that your objectives and their objectives are not completely in line. So they're there to convert users like you are. But if you look at the landing page for your hotel, so if you're looking at like hotels, Hotel Healdsburg, and you go to that landing page on an OTA, your hotel will be listed, but your competition is also listed on that page as well. Right? So that's just something to remember, is that especially if you have an integrated marketing plan where you have prospecting, you have display or Facebook trying to widen the amount of advertisers that are interested in your hotel, and they come to a search page in order to convert, you may be directing those users to an OTA where they may book your hotel, but they also may not. Right, so I think that that's definitely something to remember, is that again, they're very important to making sure that you're getting the business that you can within these times and even as you're growing. But I think it's important for us to make sure as this industry, as the hotel owner, that you do have that direct presence, because it creates a better experience for your users. But it also helps you to make sure that from your marketing efforts that those users are converting to your hotel and not to a hotel that's of one of your competitors.
Absolutely. I think that's super important to remember, is yes, you maybe are still getting that booking, but it's an added fee at that point, and you've already put in all of this time, resource, and budget into bringing them direct. So don't lose them right as they're crossing the finish line.
Right.
Another good one we have here. So this is more specific to like chain or branded properties, but they say, as a chain, there are restrictions when it comes to handling websites managed by their headquarters. So that then restricts the property from building out their own SEM. So how should they go about this, considering, their hands are kind of tied by those corporate restrictions?
So with SEM, you are working under parameters that are set by the search engines to prevent advertisers from running two campaigns that would direct users to one domain, right? It's because they can kind of see that as maybe something fishy, right? And try to sort of game the system. But if you put that aside, there's definitely room for cooperation between a property and a chain. So, my understanding in conversations I've had with clients is that both the marketing teams at the property and at the corporate level, they do want to make sure that they're sort of figuring out how they can both participate in any of their marketing campaigns, and specifically to SEM. So there is a possibility of running campaigns concurrently, but they have to be well thought out, right? So just making sure that you are sort of thinking about how you would be able to work with with your corporate marketing team as a hotel property. But I will say that at Sojourn, we have identified that as definitely something, it's a problem. And we're actually trying to develop funding options for all of our channels that really allows properties to fund campaigns on top of corporate budgets. So in the essence, if you're taking a look at an SEM campaign, if corporate is spending $1,000, but you really want to spend more and you feel that you can, having the ability to contribute to that overall budget is definitely something that we're taking a look at. But even from that point on, you can also sort of like try to sort of figure out if it is something that they're willing to do, just like, well, can we own some of the keywords? Can we direct users to perhaps a site that we have more ownership of? So it really sort of depends on the circumstances. It's definitely something that you can do, but again, it really just it requires you to have that planning, and also, of course, buy-in for all the stakeholders to make sure that you're coordinating.
Absolutely. And like you said, like these efforts can be complementary, whether it's in SEM or, through another channel. There's other ways that you can still get involved and advertise your property at the more, regional or city level. So is there a platform where the client can go into and check the search campaigns that are active and see what's happening with these campaigns, both paid and CPM?
So if you were to go into the account for Google Ads, there is a lot of flexibility there. There's a lot of tools for experienced users to interact with that. That can create a lot of problems because you're not really sort of like trying to, it's really hard for you to understand like what information you need. So Sojourn actually does have a platform where what we try to do is provide valuable information for your SEM campaign as well as for other channels, but we try to package that data in a way that is really answering specific questions. So this obviously does depend on what solution you have with us or what objectives you are. But I think that the answer is that yes, there is. And I think there should be with any partner that you're considering so that you're able to get the information that is important to you. But I always want to ask questions first before I start trying to figure out like what information that I need. So if you're working with your partner, I really would want everyone to encourage everyone to sort of take a look at it from that perspective of like things that I want answered and just making sure that I'm getting from that. And at Sojourn, we definitely try to make sure that we're considering that to make sure that we are presenting content that is able to answer your questions rather than giving you access to all of the nitty-gritty details, which of course, there's probably many people out there who would be able to decipher that. But for the most part, we believe that hotel marketing teams and hotel staff are there to run the hotel. So we're trying to make that as simple as we can for people.
Fantastic. And yeah, like Sasha said, I think it's important to have a team really looking at this and making sure that this is being monitored because it's complex, right? Okay, so I think we have time for just one more question, and I'm going to kind of piecemeal several questions into one here. So Nick and Sasha, people are wondering, what's a good baseline like CPC goal or ROAS goal? Like, what should they be expecting from their paid search efforts?
Nick, I will have you start that conversation off if you don't mind.
Okay, yeah. I really think it's sort of dependent on each property individually and sort of what your individual goals are. In terms of like looking at performance, things can vary quite a bit depending on the type of hotel that you are. So we see properties that have, low conversion rates, but their average booking value is very, very high. So it sort of justifies having a low conversion rate because they are bringing in, average booking values in, $2,000–$3,000. However, we have other properties that need a high conversion rate because their average booking value might be $200 or $300. So I think sort of overall looking at a metric is hard to say depending on what your specific goals are. So I would sort of leave it at that, I think.
So I will add on to that, like what we do here at Sojourn, like we actually do provide tools for our commercial team to actually make an estimate based off of parameters that we get from the hotels to kind of estimate that performance, right? So looking at everything from your location to the number of rooms that you have, your average daily rate. So, to further answer that question, it can be difficult to kind of come up with a benchmark, but what we try to do is to make use of the data that we have with all the campaigns that we manage. We manage, over 1,000 SEM campaigns in particular, and thousands of campaigns for all our channels. We try to make sure that we understand that hotels, they're all unique. So we try to provide as much information as we can with the data that we can get from a hotel to determine what to expect as far as performance.
Perfect. That's really helpful. All right. Well, thanks for tackling those questions, guys. And I think that's about all we have time for today. So another huge thank you to you both for that great information. I know I definitely learned something new. And thanks again to our viewers for your participation. So hopefully you feel more confident in navigating search engine marketing and search engine optimizations now that you did maybe like an hour ago. So you'll hear from us once more when we send out the final recording of today's webinar. And while we're now over halfway through this Digital 101 series, we still have 2 more key channels to brief with you all. So join us again on Wednesday, January 20th to sharpen up your Facebook and Instagram advertising tools. So we want to continue producing content that's valuable. So reach out to us on our social channels and let us know what questions you have. You can use the hashtag display101 or feel free just to tag us in the post. So let's make the most of the rest of 2020. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we will see you next year.